If you don't know it, then simply say, here's the formula for internal growth rate. ROA times retention ratio divided by 1 minus ROA times retention ratio. If dividend payout is 100%, retention ratio is precisely 0. At least make a numerical argument. Or you simply say, you got no more internal resources, you can't grow. By the way, the same would apply to ROE as well, because ROE says it's something specific thing. You can use external resources, but you have to keep the debt equity ratio the same. So if you're not generating any more internal resources, if you use external resource, that's going to increase that equity ratio, which is not allowed under sustainable growth rate. So I may have asked that. You could probably say, okay, they could borrow, and that would be the trap. Would I be that diabolical? No. Yes. Short answer. Which of the following will increase the sustainable growth rate of the firm? So let's go by one in terms of reasoning. Eliminating all dividends. Remember, sustainable growth rate is ROE times retention ratio. So anything that increases either ROE or retention ratio or both will increase the sustainable growth rate. So we're going to look at whether or not these do so. If I eliminate all dividends, what's going to happen? Currently I'm paying some dividends and I decided I'm not going to pay it. What does that mean? Yes, again, that would be one of those tautologies. If I don't pay it, I keep it, but as far as the context is concerned, that's not useful. What happens if I keep it? My retention ratio goes up, okay? That creates more internal resources, hence higher sustainable growth rate. So you keep it would not be a valid logical argument. It is a completely true statement. In fact, in logic, we call that a tautology. A statement that is in and of itself correct, but there is no logical reasoning behind it. You know, some geese are white. Yes, so. But if you say all geese are white, there's an argument there, yes or no. No, some geese are black actually. Some geese, not geeses. If you increase the target debt equity ratio, remember, if you increase that equity ratio of a firm, what's going to happen to ROE, for example? Everything else being the same. Remember the DuPont's identity. ROE is PM times TAT times equity multiplier. If that equity ratio increases, equity multiplier increases, thus ROE increases. And sustainable growth rate loves ROE increases. Hence, that's going to affect it. If you are increasing the profit margin, I shouldn't even have to say it, but you have to make an argument. That increases ROE through the DuPont's identity, and hence sustainable growth rate. Same deal with increasing the total asset turnover rate. Everything else being the same, that gives you a high ROE. The answer would be all four. And I know it's student mentality. Not all of them could be correct. There is no such thing. And we are diabolical people. Okay? Sometimes that answer is wrong, you still put it. But sometimes it's the right answer. So don't answer things based on bad student habits. That was high school or middle school. In college, you pay all this money so that you learn how to think about it. What you learn from this class in terms of how to calculate current ratio is of no consequence. You can always hire people to make that calculation for you. But understanding what that means, and that's what you take from it. Back when I started as a grad student at UK, my brother-in-law at the time was a finance professor over there. He hired me as his GA. In fact, he funded me out of his NSF grant. This guy knew nothing about complicated statistics. He could barely run a regression to save his life, but he knew the right questions to ask. And he also knew how to hire someone like me. He actually convinced me to leave the industry and come do a PhD in finance. This was after 9/11 and so on and so forth. But he knew that. So I actually ended up for what he needed. There wasn't even a standard code. I ended up writing 2,000 lines of code. It just simulated something else. Now it's standard, but 20 years ago it wasn't. That guy knew nothing about how I got that. Didn't matter. He knew what to do with the numbers. So don't try to learn stuff that you can hire people to do for you. Learn stuff that you cannot. If you're one of those who only knows how to calculate a current ratio, trust me, AI is going to make you unemployed within 2 years, all right? And then you can go and flip hamburgers. These robots probably will be too expensive to do that, so that's not going to happen. So do learn stuff that are non-linear in thinking. People who only know definitions are linear thinkers. There is nothing wrong in enough itself. If that's what you want to be, that's fine. But you're not going to be a CEO of a company by being a linear thinker. That's why I have this exam. And you're probably cussing at me, which is fine. I went to a military boarding school. We used to greet each other as "Good morning, you son of a whore." So after that, whatever you think, it's not going to affect me. This is a beautiful question too. And let's make this the last one, because we're almost out of time. And I don't want to lose time by asking you. Which one of the following will decrease the current ratio, all else being the same? Assume right now the current ratio is greater than 1. If you pay an account payable, okay, that's going to decrease current liabilities, right? Which is good. But in order to pay, you also have to decrease cash. So nothing will happen. Actually, think of it this way. Current ratio is current assets divided by current liabilities. I'm going to do something ingenious. I'm going to add a 0 to the numerator. Now this will be basically 1 plus net working capital over current liabilities. So if you do something that leaves net working capital is exactly the same level, nothing will happen to current assets. current ratio. If you sell an inventory at a profit in a charge sale, that means you create an accounts receivable. Yes, inventory decreases, accounts receivable increases. If you sold it at cost, nothing will ever happen to current assets. But you sold it at a profit. That means you get some extra cash. That increases current assets, hence current ratio. Selling inventory at a cost, at a cash sale, it's a wash. Inventory decreases, cash increases exactly the same amount. Collecting payment from a customer, accounts receivable decreases, cash increases. Same. Purchasing inventory on credit, assets go up, accounts payable also go up, nothing happens. But in terms of if it's greater than 1, oh, we already know the answer here. That's the answer. I was going to say none of those seem to be correct. All right? And study these almost every night except for weekends. Friday, Saturday, and Sunday nights are mine. I typically am around until midnight or so. You know, if you're working on something, you want to talk to me, send me an email. Just set up a Zoom call and we talk about stuff, right? You can always email. But if you call me midnight, the night before the exam, there's a chance I may be sleeping. 2 o'clock, I'll definitely be sleeping. Don't be mad. Don't leave it to the last moment.